Is this on? Okay. Welcome to the podcast, everybody. I'm Jay, and I'll be your host for the day. Welcome to my podcast. This is basically my unfiltered diary, sharing my personal advice and experiences. You didn't really ask for my opinion, but I'm going to give you it anyway. And all my stories are going to be told like train tracks, crossing over each other and all over the fucking place. You'll be occasionally visited by some of my great guests, completely ordinary people that are real with you, honest, and so funny. So I'm very excited for when that happens. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Good morning, everybody, or afternoon. I don't know what time you're tuning in. This is a safe space for me to share all my thoughts, feelings, share my experiences, and give my best advice in scenarios that I have been in. I wouldn't take everything I say for gospel. I do like to do things in a different way to most people, but it's worked for me. In this episode, I will be sharing my views and experiences with mental health, how I discovered mental health, and how I understood it fully through my own personal experiences. So today is a Sunday. Usually I take this day off as a rest day. However, to get this podcast out there as soon as possible, I am recording at every single opportunity I have and editing as well so that I can get ahead of myself. This morning, Alex made me some breakfast. It was so nice. Bacon and egg sandwich in bed. Yum. Today, I am feeling like, I don't know what cabin fever is. I should probably Google that. But I have found that I just feel like where I'm in my house all the time and I'm not going out anywhere at this current moment, that I am just like getting the worst dry skin. My asthma's playing up because my chest feels dry and my skin's getting dry, my lips are dry, and yet I thought recording podcasts was a good idea, which is very dehydrating, by the way. Like every 5 seconds I have to chop a part of the episode because I have to have a sip of water. What a nightmare. Today I thought I would discuss mental health since it's been so over talked about but not necessarily understood. So firstly, how are you doing today? Always be sure that you're asking yourself that first. Self-reflect and check in on yourself as often as possible. Did you wake up on the wrong side of the bed? Have you got this burst of energy? Or are you feeling super numb and you just don't know why? I find that mental health as a topic can be quite a sensitive subject. I mean, not everybody is happy to talk about it, and I honestly believe it's really important to get people's voices out there and to talk about it and discuss it. Talking about mental health and sharing experiences was the key to my healing and understanding. I just found it really reassuring. Years ago, when the internet was just flooded with mental health topics and discussions, it wasn't really educated and it was completely mocked. I did not have the same opinions on mental health that I do now. I used to think this was some sick trend. Like, why on earth are people glamorizing going mental and all this negative behaviour? And I did think to myself, why does everyone want something to be wrong with them? It's incredibly self-critical, and I just found it really strange. Personally, I have been through a lot of stuff, especially trauma, so my judgments at the time make sense. I just thought, get on with your life. It honestly was quite odd for me, though I was very uneducated on this topic. The first dose of mental health that affected my life were through some of my close friends. This was because mental health had affected them. So in my late teens, I had a few friends who had anxiety. They suffered panic attacks, social anxiety, and some even felt quite suicidal. I didn't really understand it though. I would read up about it just to be able to help them, even when they would call me in floods of tears, or when they wanted to end their life. I would learn to stay calm, reassure them, and things like that they're going to be okay and they're safe in their environment and all that kind of stuff. Because that's what they need to hear and be reminded of. Because when someone's going through this, I'd learned through reading online that they don't feel safe and they don't feel comfortable and they're scared, etc. I didn't exactly know how they felt though, so I didn't quite fully understand their train of thought. I just did my research online. I have a very open mind, so naturally I try and understand from different perspectives. I've always been that friend who's really trusting. I am some of my friends' personal diaries. They can just fill me in with their life story and I can relate to it and understand it most of the time. I'd share my advice or even just listen, and they know I would never share it with anyone, have any judgments. I'm just completely transparent with a lot of things as well. Even throughout this new podcast of mine, I might share some stories, but I won't be sharing anyone's identity without their consent. It's absolutely none of my business. And who would I to be to start exposing someone like that? Cancelled, for sure. When I was in secondary school, well, high school to some of you, I had two of my friends who were going through quite intense mental health issues. They kept having panic attacks and anxiety attacks. I didn't really understand it, but with the research I'd read up on after the first one I witnessed, which was bloody scary, it scared the shit out of me. I was prepared for each one. I would be reassuring, bring them water, and keep the conversation rolling. Even when one of my friends just collapsed in our science class, my friend and I pulled her out of class as our teacher just thought she was playing up and kicked her out anyway. We kept her attention, tried to reassure her and keep her calm. We even tried to make her laugh. The attention and company definitely helped her. Another one of my friends just kept fainting. Kids at the school had nothing nice to say about it, and her anxiety was so intense it really was affecting her mental health and her physical health. Now, my poorly educated opinion at the time just thought, why don't they just go get help? Or just try to focus on the things that don't trigger it. I grew up with my mum, who's always been quite mentally unwell. She struggled with addiction to alcohol at one stage, and I understood it was just her coping mechanism. So I didn't mind at the time. But my sister despised her behaviour, though she didn't really understand that my mum was just hurting. When I was so surrounded by friends and family with bad mental health, I thought whenever I felt really down that it meant that I was becoming like them. I would have episodes of tears for like a whole night. I always felt really distant from my other friends. They all looked completely normal to me, but I would come home and take care of my siblings. I always wanted to learn how to change how I felt. The teachers at school would talk to me and tell me, to change your life, it starts with you. You can be who you want to be. You are in control. I'm saying that in like a mocking voice, but I actually took that as gospel. I researched online and in books of successful icons, what they did, and I was obsessed. I wanted to change my life so bad, and I was like 12 to 14 years old, and I was obsessed with growing up. I was at an age where all my friends and I thought we were old enough to go out and know what we were talking about. Because of the conversations around me, I started taking more notice of my body appearance, and at that age, I was like borderline anorexic, unhealthily skinny, flat-chested, and I had an ironing board as an ass, basically. In light of the television and movies, I thought my body type was normal. But this was when everyone wanted to have a nice butt. Now that I look back, my thoughts were really not healthy, but I guess that's kind of normal for a teenager. I just wanted an ass. I just wanted a nice, big, juicy bum, to be honest. I was really physical in school anyway. I competed in gymnastics when I was in primary school, and I took part in a few sporting activities. I loved doing rounders, netball. I did actually enjoy football, but I didn't really take part in that as much, mainly just like in lesson. But outside of school, I always did rounders and netball and just a couple of other activities here and there. When I was in primary school, I competed in gymnastics and I took part in a few sporting activities then as well. But in primary school, you have to pay for these activities, and I ended up having to quit all of them until I got into secondary school, just because in secondary school it's free. I couldn't just jump straight back into sports after school in secondary because I had to look after my siblings. The next best thing was to go for a run and do those daily fitness challenges I would find on Twitter. You know these posts which were like, you know those posts where they were an image of, it's like a calendar, and it'd be like 1 to 30 days or 1 to 60 days, and it's like squat challenges, workout challenge, plank challenge, all that sort of stuff. So I used to use them quite a lot, and I would do like a certain number of squats, push-ups, sit-ups, planks, you know, just the basics of stuff that you can do in your bedroom. I would do that every single day, but I would start on the highest one. And if I couldn't do it, I would just keep aiming for the highest one. I began waking up at 5 a.m, going for a run in the morning. In the beginning, it was bloody hard because I'm asthmatic. So I'd be out of breath and I'd be bloody struggling. But every day I would do a little more than the day before. So I'd go around the block, around a couple streets, and then I could actually go around the whole town in the end. This was another thing that I just became obsessed with. So I would come home from school, nap for about an hour, wake up, make dinner for the kids, go out for a run for about an hour. This routine was great for me as I didn't have much of a social life at the time. I mean, I was quite young. After each run and before each run, I would look in the mirror and look at my abs and my butt. I was obsessed with noticing the change. I walked an hour to and from school as well. My siblings would tell my mum, Jamie's going for a run at night. Jamie's going out at night. So this was when she was at work. So obviously she wasn't very happy about it because I was supposed to be looking after them. So we used to argue over that a little. The thing is, now that I look back, I do actually understand. I was the oldest. I was responsible for looking after them. I would make their dinner, make sure they bath and all that stuff. But my other sister, she's only a year younger than me, so I didn't see why I could pop out for an hour just to go for a run. Realistically, neither of us should have been looking after the kids, but my mum went to work to provide for us. She worked in bars, and then she'd go out with her friends quite a lot too. She did become a little bit of an alcoholic at some point. Not that I was really bothered at the time. It had more of a negative effect on my sister than me. My sister hates alcohol now. Now that I really reflect on the past, I would say I was mentally unwell at that age. I was obsessed with my appearance, and it was really hard to change because I was so skinny. What I didn't realise was where I was working so hard on my body and overly active, I taught my metabolism to work extremely quickly. I was also a young teen, so my metabolism was already very quick. I was always told you need to eat more, you're so skinny, you're stick thin, you're so bony, you look so unhealthy, we need to fatten you up, blah 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 blah. Even though it might not have been the right thing to say, it wasn't normalised to not comment on someone's body at the time. People only cared if you was fat, really. Everyone envied being skinny and proper slim, so naturally I always just looked for the positives. I tried to take it as a compliment most of the time. The older I was getting, it wasn't a compliment. I fucking hated it. I hated being so skinny. And the more I stressed and the more unhappy I was with other things in my life, I would just lose more weight. If I was healthy, then, it wouldn't have been such a bad thing. But I would binge. I would eat unhealthy food and junk and crap. I never had proper meals. Sometimes I'd have dinner, but for example, when I went to school, I was eligible for free school meals, but they barely give you anything anyway. Like, I think I used to be able to get on my free school meal a sandwich and a drink, or a sandwich and a bloody flapjack or something. Like, that was it. And that is not enough, especially when you're that young. You eat so much more when you're younger. Well, I believe so anyway. I never had enough to eat, and the older I got with exams and moving house a lot, I actually ate less because I don't do very well with change. I eventually ended up using my Guardian's milkshakes. They're these weight-gaining milkshakes. They're really small bottles. They look about 30 to 50 ml. They are vile. They are so disgusting. Honestly, sipping them made me feel so sick and so gross. Imagine, eating a whole roast dinner in a mouthful. I can't even explain it because obviously the thought of that sounds nice. But being that full within seconds, honestly, I felt like I could throw up. But that was my own battle with my own body. I believe that's called body dysmorphia or something like that. Now, I'm going to share a story. Now, I'm not going to get too far into my mental health I'm not going to get too far into my mental health before I experience quite bad mental health, just because I wasn't aware of it. I didn't know I had any mental health issues. They were all underlying, very subconscious. So I wasn't aware of it. I didn't know. If people said to me, have you got mental health issues? I would always say no, even with the body dysmorphia thing. Like, a lot of these things that I've learned about myself, I've learned after I experienced a bad mental health issue. So becoming self-aware now, at the age I am now, I've learnt to identify what was wrong with me before that to help myself. So I'm going to fast forward from my childhood to 2020. I live by myself. I have done for 3 years at this point. The UK was in lockdown and I quit smoking weed. So just picture this. It was 4 a.m. and I was struggling to sleep all night. I could hear my heartbeat. It was so loud. It alerted my body. And I thought, what's wrong with my heart? It was being so loud and I could see it through my chest thumping and the volume was just getting louder and louder. I'm landing in like fight or flight mode. Without realising, I just leap out of bed. All the commotion just made me feel sick. I put my head over the toilet. I felt like I was going to collapse or pass out. I couldn't keep my head near the toilet because I'm in fear of like passing out. So I keep looking in the mirror. Every fear entered my mind. Am I having a stroke? Am I having a heart attack? The heartbeat just got louder and louder and louder. I'm trying to sit up in bed. I feel like my temperature was hot, but my whole body was shivering. It was the most confusing thing I've ever experienced in my life. Is this the withdrawal from when I quit smoking weed 2 months ago? It's been a couple of months now. The shaking is really scaring me because I was like, hot and not cold. Why am I shivering? I actually describe it like picturing a crackhead having withdrawal symptoms. That's how I explain it to people. I literally look like a crackhead having withdrawal symptoms because that's exactly what it looked like. I'm focusing on my breathing. I've taken my inhalants. I didn't drink much today, maybe just a cider. The front of my head starts feeling really hot. Like, I've put my hands on my head and it just feels like this heat is just surrounding the front area of my head. And I can actually feel my blood boiling up and down my body. Like, I can just feel the way it's going down my arms, down my legs, up to my chest, up to my head. And the way I'm feeling it spread, I'm getting that dreaded thought. Cancer? Is it cancer? No, it's not. It can't be cancer. Wait, what is it? My heartbeat is just getting louder and louder. And I'm just starting to panic. I'm looking in the mirror and my face isn't drooping. So I look normal. So it can't be a stroke. What if it's a parasite? I watch way too much TV. I am thinking of every possible worst case scenario because it's flooding my mind of all these bad things and I'm convinced it's every single one of these things. There is moments throughout this whole experience I'm like, yeah, I'm having a heart attack. I've got fucking cancer. I've got a fucking parasite. I'm having a stroke. All these things are going through my head. There was one thing I was completely certain of. I knew I was going to die. I was 100% certain that's what it felt like when you die. Like, even now, sometimes I just think it sounds crazy when I'm talking about it. Anyway, I literally felt like I was dying. Like, it felt like this is what the physical sensation feels like when you die. I run out the house and I knock on my next door neighbour's door. She's like me though. She was a deep sleeper at the time. I banged so loud on the door as well, but it was like 4 or 5 a.m. at this point. I didn't feel like I had much time to wait. I was so sure I was about to die and that it was going to be painful. And I've never been so scared in my life. I turned all the lights on in my house. It's been like half an hour, maybe 45 minutes, and all the symptoms are not getting any quieter or slowing down. I've left my front door wide open. I keep feeling this guilt. Like, whoever comes to my door next will find me dead. I thought, do I want to be going to hospital in a pandemic without knowing why? I tried to call the guy I was talking to at the time. It's nearly 5 a.m. Of course he didn't answer. I'm shaking, I'm shivering, I'm hot. My head's beating like so loud and my heart's beating even louder. I can feel this pulsating in my head. It's getting faster and faster and I drink water to try and calm down. I'm trying to play liquid D&B music to try and calm me down because it's my favourite, because I find it soothing. Nothing is working. I literally got my phone out and I thought, right, I'm actually going to have to call an ambulance. I've typed 999 and I'm hesitant. I'm like, oh, I can't call an ambulance. I'm like, surely this... I don't know exactly every single thought that went through my head, but these are the ones I do remember. And there's some hesitant in my mind. And I'm thinking, I'm not ready. I don't feel like anyone's going to believe what I'm saying. I've never heard anybody feel this, have this sensation, have this experience. I am so unfamiliar with it. I'm fucking terrified. I was so indecisive about calling. I know you should never ever Google your symptoms. But on this one occasion, before I pressed that call button when I dialed 999, I just Googled fast, loud heartbeat, shivering, hot flushes. Now you want to know what Google said? Every single search result said the same thing. I scrolled all the way down to the bottom. I even went on to the next page. When does anyone ever do that? Just the same 2 words highlighted to me in bold. Panic attack, panic attack, panic attack, panic attack. Oh, panic attack, panic attack. I'm reading it and I'm like almost in disbelief. I was like, oh, what the hell, right? Why is this not educated? I felt this huge amount of relief. I thought, okay, it's just a panic attack. I swear I've had one before. Later to find out, after my research, they were just anxiety attacks. But this panic attack was fucking dangerous. I knew I was going to die. And I'm not sure why, but being on my phone was making my symptoms worse. So I couldn't continue looking on my phone about how to calm down or stop it. I just restarted this whole panic attack because I'm fucking scared. Like, well, what now? It was just traumatizing. You know, I was so traumatized from this experience. It was so scary. I've been in a lot of scary situations in my life, and that by far was the worst. I mean, it seriously scarred my mind. It went on for a total of 2 hours, and I kept doubting Google. I thought, well, I hope it's that, because if it's not, I'm about to die. It's gone 6 a.m, my front door is wide open, all the lights are on at my house, so I just put all of my pillows on my bed against the wall. I prompted myself up so I couldn't lay down, because I'm tired. I still haven't slept yet. I haven't slept all night. That's probably one of the reasons it got triggered, because I was so overtired as well. We're in lockdown, there's no routine in my head, there's no sleep pattern, so I'm prompting these pillows against the wall to stop me from falling over or laying down, and I'm just trying to make sure that if I die sitting up. I don't know why. It makes no sense to me now, but at the time, that's what I felt like I had to do. I was trying to stop myself from falling asleep, because I knew I was going to die in my sleep. It was a very wide train of thought for sure. I just couldn't stop thinking about it. I become obsessed, like so badly. So when the next day came, I woke up and I was alive. I thought, well, I got through that. Thank fuck. I told my friend about it. And as I'm listening to myself speak about it and tell her about it, I'm like, I sound fucking crazy. Like, I'm already crazy. Now I'm just adding to it. I went outside and told my neighbour, and she understood. She said she's felt like that before, which did help me, help my mind. I just felt so fragile, and I wanted to know what triggered it. And after the panic attack, I just felt like I was going to keep having it, and I was going to trigger it and restart it, and I was just waiting for it to happen. And your whole body just feels like some thin layer of glass that is going to shatter. Like it's got a crack in it. It's going to take one more thing and the whole thing will shatter again. So I feel so fragile and on edge. I just wanted to know what it was that triggered it in the first place. I think so much about a lot of things all of the time. I couldn't figure out what specifically triggered it. And the next few nights, whenever I got into bed, it would trigger it. I started sleeping on my sofa. It was easier and it didn't stop the triggers. Going to sleep was the trigger. So I would drink it every night and it would knock me out. And it worked for a little while. If I didn't drink enough, I would have a panic attack. Nowhere near as bad, but enough to affect my life. It stopped me from sleeping and I was just really, really scared for a very long time. More than months for sure. I began this really unhealthy journey of drinking, basically became an alcoholic. I was drinking every day, in fact. When I went to work, so I came off furlough and went back to work, I had to sleep at night. It was just easier if I followed a routine of going to the pub and then going to sleep every night. Financially, I really fucked myself over. I spent a lot of time learning about my mental health. I started using essential oils, burning incense. I mean, it was helping. It was my way of meditating, but I knew I had to change my whole lifestyle. I was going for a walk every night, at least 40 minutes. I was eating really healthy, properly, no takeaways, no bad food, no junk food. I stayed really hydrated, and I was just hoping this mental health journey would stop and just go away. I became OCD obsessed with my routine, trying to prevent this from coming back. It came back multiple times a week, pretty much every day. I mean, some nights it would be more of like a heart flutter or like a minor panic attack, but it came back. None of them, apart from like one or two, were almost as bad as the first one. But that's because the first one was the most terrifying. I didn't know what it was. I was so certain I was going to die. But these other ones I had and kept triggering, they were the same symptoms. It just was nowhere near as bad. I knew what it was. I just knew I needed to calm the fuck down, but I couldn't get it out my head. I was so obsessed with it. Luckily, I had some really, really good friends around me. One of my friends understood what I was going through. He even told me to look into Stoicism. I was going for my daily walk one evening, and the pub I usually go to is literally right outside my house. So as I'm going to go for my walk of the day, all my friends see me and call me over. I'm still in this weird stage of feeling overly fragile because I'm having panic attacks every night. I'm getting so sick of it, I'm trying to stop it, hence going for a walk and not going to the pub this day. They knew something was wrong. They can see it from a mile away. So they ask, and I just think to myself, fuck it, I'll tell them. All my friends are guys, so I didn't think they'd understand, but they know I'm a bit crazy anyway, so it's a judgment-free zone. I'll just tell them. It was a pleasant surprise telling them, because each of them, in fact, almost all of them, told me a story, each of their own, and it really helped. If these confident, strong-ass men can share their panic attack story with me, and they are okay, and they say it does end, and it does pass, it really did help my mind. More than most of them suggested coping mechanisms that I'd already been suggested. I just wanted to feel like people I know and love know I'm not fucking crazy when I'm trying to tell them this. Even more so that men struggle to discuss these kind of things, and I feel so much better to know that I wasn't the only one and that they could just tell me, and they didn't say it as if they thought they were crazy. Like, I was like, oh, okay, so this is normal. At this stage, it was the majority of the people that I ended up sharing my story with. They all knew exactly how I'd felt. They all related to it. There was only a couple of people that had no idea what I was talking about, which was so reassuring, but it's still scary. How do all these people know how I feel, but there's not more education out there? I tried to share my story with work colleagues, but I started having a panic attack just talking about it, especially since I work with older men, so they have no idea what I'm talking about. They're quite old-fashioned. Back in their day, mental health didn't fucking exist. And, I mean, I believed that until I experienced it myself. There was one colleague of mine who always asked me if I'm right, checks in on me, and because of what I was going through, I shared my story. And to my surprise, he had experienced what I experienced. And he'd also had therapy, so that really helped me. So I took everything about his advice and what he learned and overcome, and I thought, right, I'm going to get myself a therapist. I'd visit my friend a lot during the lockdown. And when I was going through all of this, she's a parent, and really often, multiple times a week, she understood how I felt every time I'd tell her what went on from the day before or whenever I last saw her. She experienced panic attacks when she was pregnant and anxiety once you become a mum, which I think is understandable. Like, you're always worrying about your little one. I felt comfortable when around her and her daughter. Her and her partner I've been really good friends with for a few years now. And her daughter is an absolute gem. So spending a lot of time with them I found really helped me. They didn't really realise it, but they were literally taking care of me. They were my allocated support bubble during COVID times, as you'd call it. But it was so nice. Like, I used to go over there almost every single day, tell them I was fucking mental, and they'd make me feel better. We'd laugh it out, and she'd check in on me all the time, and it was just really, really nice to have someone there. Just, when you are feeling this way, you just feel like no one wants to hear it. Like, no one wants to hear that yesterday, today and tomorrow you all feel the same. you all feel mental, you all feel crazy, you're all still having panic attacks. But it's nice that, you know, people don't actually think like that they don't, it's not that they don't want to hear it, it's all in your mind. You know, they made me dinner all the time, they still do now whenever I go visit them, but they probably looked after me and I really appreciate it. They're probably good friends to me. I didn't really have much luck with seeing a therapist. I contacted mental health charities and they didn't really care about me the way I thought they would. I even threatened to commit suicide to flag the urgency. That didn't work. I was really disappointed in the lack of help out there. It took me a lot of time to understand and figure out my triggers. It says online it can be so random, but I knew in my gut something triggered it because I'm an overthinker. There's a lot of things that have happened to me in my life and I'm like, something triggered that and it's got to be something related to my health. That's what I convinced myself. So one evening, I was having a drink with a couple of the boys. It was only when we were discussing a very sensitive topic. I shared a story of mine to relate to something one of them had just said. As I'm telling the story, I'm coming to the realisation of, oh my god, that was the trigger. Like, I'm adding up the dates, I'm working it out, I'm pulling the strings together and I'm thinking, oh my god, that was the trigger. Like, I was worrying about that and thinking about that and feeling uncomfortable about that. I was sexually assaulted. I haven't really processed it. I was assaulted by someone I was once friends with. I had a very long friendship with them. We was a group of friends. I just knew, well, I just thought I knew this person really well. I didn't need to say who it was when I was sharing my story. I don't want to share the identity. I didn't really want to tell anybody because we all knew this person. Everyone was friends with him. I did have to make clear who it wasn't because my friends are all boys. When I'm telling the boys about it, they're literally just calling out names. And I don't want to ignore it because I don't want them to think it's one person when it's not them. And in time, they have narrowed it down to who it was. I didn't want to share it. Although I did tell my neighbour about it the day after it happened. Like in the morning, you know, when it happened, they had left really early in the morning. Make that part make sense. But in the morning, they left really early. And when I decided to actually get out of bed, me and my neighbour, we share this little outside garden bit together, and I always sat there because that's where the sun is in the morning, and it was the summer, so I'm sat there and she's come out. I'm just telling her about it, and you know, she's gone, yeah, that's not right, that's not okay, you know, telling me these things. And I'll be honest, it sort of just went straight over my head. Like, I was just like, yeah, it wasn't right, whatever. I didn't really process how it actually affected me as such. I just sort of told her a story, if that makes sense. I didn't really puzzle together that it was causing my bad mental health. At the end of the day, I was traumatised and I was being ignorant about it. The thing is I thought I was lucky. Like, I thought because the assault could have become so much worse, it could have become rape, it could have become violent, it could have become so much worse than what it was. It was, you know, this guy, he touched me inappropriately when I was asleep. And because I have experienced it before, I'm not as a deep sleeper anymore. Sounds don't wake me up, noise don't wake me up. Someone could throw water on me, it won't wake me up. But if someone touches me, it wakes me up. And I woke up and just went into shock, basically. I just completely froze. But, like, all of my strength is holding myself together. Like, when I go to sleep, I tuck myself in like a fucking burrito. The blanket was completely around my body and tucked over me. So, where they're trying to pull it off, it's not really happening. Because where I've woke up and I've gone into shock, all my strength is stopping that from happening. But I don't think they thought I was awake, and I can't really justify the way I acted at the time, because when I think about it, I think, well, why didn't I go mad? Why didn't I act in a different way? Why did I just think a lot of things about it. But what I did do, when I've gone into like a panic mode, I pick up my phone and I like check the time and show that I'm on my phone. And when I do that, like as I reach up for my phone, no movement. There's zero movement in the bed. Like everything stopped. They're pretending to be asleep. So I'm like, right, okay, which kind of freaked me out more. I don't know why, but it freaked me out more. So I left my phone on. Press record. And, I woke up again to the same thing happening. And what I did was went into this sort of different sensation of shock where I was trying to force myself to fall asleep so I didn't have to be awake, so I didn't have to experience it. I don't really know how to explain that, but I think everyone reacts to these situations differently when they're in that situation, and I would always assume that I would act differently, and I would always assume that I would act more appropriately. And I have spent well over a year now worrying about the way I acted and the fact that I didn't do more about it. But because I was in that situation, I was fucking terrified. I've never felt like I've acted more wrong in a situation before. So, out of fear, I just tried to go back to sleep. I tried to not experience it. And the next thing I remember was, internally fucking freaking out. And then I just remember blinking. And then I hear a voice saying, "Jamie, I'm off." I just sort of sit there like numb for ages. When I sort of snap out of it, I sort of take, awareness of my surroundings, and I'm like, okay, I'm still tucked in. But just I don't really want to go into too much detail of all of it, but anyway. At this stage, it'd been quite a long time when I'd come to terms with my trauma. My friendship group of lads is quite large, so this guy had been in my house with my friends since. It wasn't easy, but I didn't want everyone to know. I'd only told, these couple of people. It wasn't easy, but I didn't want everyone to know about it. I acted normal, and I just didn't talk to him. So from the first time that I told those two boys about it, I'd come to... They'd sort of reassured me, like, assault is assault. Once I come to the terms with that, I felt like I could share my story. I mean, I didn't straight away, but after I told them, and I discussed it with my friend, my neighbour, who, I said, "Oh my god, I told the boys about it." And, she was like, assault is assault. It's okay to feel the way you feel. And at this stage that I told those two, it had actually been quite a long time since I'd come to terms with the trauma. Fucking hell, what pins and needles. My friendship group is quite a large group of lads. This guy had been in my house with the boys since. It wasn't easy. I didn't speak to him, I didn't invite him. It was just the norm that, after the pub everyone come over. So when he was in my house, I remember saying to one of the boys, it's quite normal for me to go to bed when I have a drink while everyone's over, especially while all this panic attack stuff was going on. And at this stage, I'd only just started realising that the panic attacks was because of this person. And I remember one of my friends was like, "Oh, is it alright if we all still have a drink? I'm like, yeah, I always let everyone still have a drink when I go for a nap or go to sleep. Everyone in my house I always trust, but it was the first time I'd had people over with someone that I did no longer trust, especially since everyone in the house is the regular group of people. It's not like we had new people over and stuff. So I was like, yeah. And then I remember pulling over one of the boys and saying, you can stay over, but I don't want anybody else staying. I want you to make sure that everybody else leaves. And they just said, yeah, sure, no problem. And I don't think anybody actually stayed that day. I can't really remember, but obviously the person I was worried about definitely did not stay. And I haven't seen them since. By the end of the year, I told a handful of my friends, so eventually he stopped getting invited out. I actually felt really protected by this. Like, I felt like people actually cared about me. And that's how I learned how easy it was to just cut people off that should not have access to your life, that break your trust and try to hurt you and cause damage and trauma to you. Whether you know them or don't, whether you're friends with them or not. A lot of people will go and report it, and I just don't feel like I want to open that chapter and open that door again. It's over, it's done with, it's gone. It was over a year ago, and I have learnt my trigger and I've learnt my trauma, and I'm in the process of healing from it. I'm so glad I cut those ties and opened up about it. It took me a while, but talking about it and being open about it is something that really helped me. Only a couple of times had I been doubted about it, which was really upsetting. But I think when I had been doubted about it, I would get an apology like, I don't think you're lying about it. They just want to make sure that I'm not misinterpreting it or something like that, which is what I thought in the beginning, And now that I've become more self-aware, I've learned, no, I didn't misinterpret it. What happened was wrong. It is still a really sensitive topic to me. It took me nearly a year to sleep in my bed again. It took me over a year to stop drinking all the time. Thanks to my friends, I did it. They supported me. They looked after me for sure. And still to this day, I'm so grateful for that. I didn't realise this episode was going to take this long. So I will be doing a part 2, so stay tuned for the next episode. In the next episode, I will be discussing how to help yourself, self-help, what to surround yourself with, how to improve and become more self-aware. Basically, this was all meant to be in one episode. However, it's been almost an hour since I started recording, so I'm going to make it into 2 episodes. Thanks for listening to my really depressing story. Whenever you feel like something wasn't right, something shouldn't have happened to you, please trust your gut, because you are probably right. More likely than unlikely chance that you are right. If something makes you uncomfortable and makes you feel a certain way when it shouldn't, like an alert to your system, trust your body. It knows you better than yourself. So, yeah. Sorry I couldn't really go into deep detail about my story as well. One, I don't really want to trigger anyone too much, and I don't really like to revisit it, but if I'm going to be completely transparent about something, it's best to start with being more open and honest about myself and to myself. So, yeah. Well, that's a bit of a depressing episode, isn't it? Not all my episodes are going to be this depressing. I just feel like it's educational, and I'm going to tell you how to get out of this shitty situation of yours. Please make sure you follow, like, and subscribe. So thank you so much for listening, tuning in, and hearing me out. I really hope you are enjoying the pod. My editing skills are getting a bit better. The first 2 episodes I recorded, I'm so unhappy with. I actually recorded the first one so many times, so I just got to the point where I was like, do you know what, just record it. You will find the best environment for the sound. You'll be able to edit it. You'll be able to make the music. So by the 3rd episode, I found a good space to edit in for the sound. So I used to record in the living room. Now I record in my bedroom with blankets over the doors to create a sound insulation so it doesn't sound echoey. I am basically giving the mic a kiss. That's how close I am. I'm sat on my bed, so I'm actually comfy because my sofa is so uncomfy. Also, by the 3rd episode, Alex actually got me these really nice headphones, which is something that I thought I had. I thought I had a pair of headphones. Like, you know, I used to always listen to headphones all the time. Don't know where the hell they went, but listening to, like, what I do is I plug the headphones into the mic so I can actually hear myself in real time. So I can hear if I'm too close to the mic or if I'm echoing because I'm fucking miles away. So it's all about figuring that out. I hope you feel like I have improved, and if you don't care, that's fine, but I just want to create the best quality podcast for everyone to find it easy to listen to and take advice and give other people advice and educate from it. And I know that when I'm watching things like TikToks or listening to podcasts, I really enjoy listening to other people's stories and experiences and stuff, so I felt like I could share my own and give my own personal perspective. Make sure you tag me on social media if you share my podcast so I can reshare it to my story and say my thank yous. I would love to know who actually enjoys listening to me ramble on. Sorry I don't sound so bubbly today. Bit of a tough episode, as you know. I'm on Facebook, Instagram as @podcast.j. My personal Instagram is jvicky98, JAIVICKY98, although I would prefer if you followed the actual podcast one, because I actually post on it, and actually I'm way more transparent instead of thinking I look bougie. I haven't quite worked out all the platforms yet. I know you can follow, like, subscribe and all that. If you can leave comments, do that. I have some very exciting announcements soon. I will be getting people involved, so when I have my guests on, I will actually be doing them on YouTube videos so that you can actually feel more involved and put a face to the voice more. If you have any advice for helping me get my podcast out there more, please let me know. I would really appreciate it. As you can tell, I'm super new to this. Ain't got a fucking clue what I'm doing. Also, I could actually use some help of you guys. If you can find a transition sound better than the ones I have. So I have a transition sound in all the podcasts so far of turning the page of a book. That's one. And then the first time I used it, I thought, God, it literally sounds like I'm reading from a script. Except in the first one, I literally was reading from a script. Now I have bullet points of discussions so that I, keep myself in place as to where I was. I also have another transition sound called weapon throw. It sounds like this. So, yeah, I like that, but I want another one, so it doesn't sound too repetitive. I looked at bubble sounds, I looked at glass clinking, I looked at dropping change, like the sound of jewellery and change dropping, or money. But, yeah, can't find one I love. So if you've got any suggestions of satisfying sounds that sound cool for transitions, don't be shy, share it please. Anyway, I hope you have a great day. I hope you have a great week. Thank you so much for listening and staying tuned. I really hope you feel like from this depressing podcast episode that got a bit deep, that you can feel like you can share your story and speak up, because keeping it to yourself in silence, it will come back and bite you one day. It will swallow you up, and when you feel like you want to talk about it, it will be really hard to. And addressing it now is much better than addressing it later. Okay? Whatever you do, I'm proud of you.